So as we know, organic has all these amazing environmental benefits. The topic I'm really going to talk about today is what is the proof that we need to have as a sector? Why aren't we able to quickly, spout off all sorts of Canadian research in regards to how our system mitigates climate change, et cetera? I get asked for this data in our government meetings, and I'm working with Andy Hammermeister and the team at the Organic Science Cluster to make sure that we can all speak that language very quickly with Canadian data. There's a lot of data that exists in other countries, but not as much as we need, and not enough long-term studies. So we'll continue to work together with all of our sector to make sure that we can verify these claims, because it's important, especially when different sectors or even the government that is now very interested in what organic has to say, we need to be able to back it up with our claims and our science and our data and our research. One of the things that frequently is not talked about in organic is how much labor we contribute towards Canadian agriculture system. And there's a study that was done in the by Penn State University in the United States, which looked at hotspots of organic and how it's actually looking at a poverty reduction strategy. Because when you look at organic communities all across the United States, this is where there's improved economic activities. So I think starting to connect that we're not just an environmental movement, we are a labor movement, we are a sector that is very much a grassroots movement, and how we contribute back to health and broadening the spectrum is an important way for our positioning. So let's talk about the money. Where are we at? Well, we're no longer a niche system. I think we know that. Everybody in this room does anyhow. The global organic market is now at 80 billion in sales, and Canada's holding the ranking as 5th largest organic consumer market, which is amazing. So we've reached 4.7 billion in sales, and when we're talking to the government regulators that we frequently are speaking with, it's estimated that by 2020 we're going to be at over 200 billion in sales. And there's another really exciting thing that's happening in 2020, which is that the millennials are going to outpace the baby boomers, and that is our core market that is starting to drive this consumer demand to the point that people are looking at this as a business opportunity. And I think we're starting to see a shift from some conventional farmers that are interested in certainly the economic opportunity, whether it's philosophical reasons or not. It could start shaping and shifting who's starting to consider more sustainable methods of production. Also, just to highlight that Canada has the 10th largest area of organic agriculture, and that stat we've only got up from 2014. We've been in the process of collecting all of our information from the certification bodies to get a Canadian spectrum, and we do provide, on behalf of Canada, to the IFOAM International, how we compare on a global scale our Canadian system. So, this logo, you all know it. Why do we have a logo? It's not about the logo, it's about this logo representing all the work that goes behind it. And this logo, of course, was the many years of work to get to one logo being available here in Canada. So it's only been around for 7 years, and we're now at a 62% awareness rate amongst Canadians. That's pretty phenomenal. So to see that, we went from a time when we weren't with just one Canadian organic standard, then we had over 70 logos coming into our country, that we've been able to actually work together through the Think Canada Organic campaign, through your own education and awareness of your stakeholders, to really look at how we can increase awareness so that people understand all that you do to put this on your products. How are we doing in regards to trust claim ratings? It's interesting, the discussion of social license. Dag and I have some great discussions because he's the president of my board. And it's interesting because this is very enlightening that we are in the place where we're the third most trusted claim. And why I like to put this up here is because local, made in Canada, and certified Canadian organic are the three most trusted claims that are out there. But why do we not have a lot more grown in Canada products? And I'm going to go on with the rest of our statistics to look at how much of the products that are coming in are USDA organic, which is the least trusted out of all the claims. And another thing to highlight off of this slide is frequently we think that perhaps non-GMO verified is not our friend, that it's actually taken up some of our market share. What I think is interesting here is I asked non-GMO if they could give me their numbers, how many products are non-GMO verified in, like right now, and they said around 33,000 products are non-GMO verified, and 39% of those are also certified organic. So if we were to do that analysis against fair trade and organic, it's about 45% are fair trade and organic. But what I think is super interesting is that the non-GMO has not gained the trusted, respected level that we have yet in our sector, because there are products that are out there that are not high-risk products. There's non-GMO verified salt, etc. And so some of the GMO labeling, there's a GMO labeling bill that's being proposed right now as a private member's bill in Parliament. That is one of the areas that they discussed, is wanting to make sure that products that really aren't able to be, that aren't high-risk products, that we make sure that we're tightening up that system around labeling and these sorts of claims that go onto products. And natural, I think we all know, natural is something that's not very clearly defined. I did hear rumors that there's an ISO working group to actually create an international definition on natural. So that will be interesting, particularly in light of Organics 3.0. If you come to the presentation at 3 o'clock with me and David and Andy, I'd like to talk more about what is natural, and is natural that place where the transition to organic could start in order to broaden our supply, because not everybody can hit the certified organic straight away. We need a pathway. So Canada's organic landscape, this is the most recent 2015 data that we've got. As you can see, our biggest amount of land, we've got 65% used for pasture and forage crops, 33% for field crops, and then hardly anything that we're growing for fruits and vegetables. And why I bring this up is in light of food security. So are we growing our own food as organic, or are we growing it to export it? And I think we can see by the numbers here that we are not growing organic sustainably for our own purposes here in Canada. We are the world leaders, of course, in wheat, oats, pulses, barley, rye. These are areas where we've got a lot of production happening, and most of that all is coming out of the prairies. We are growing. I've heard that the global amount of organic acreage is 1%. We are above the average. We're 1.8% in Canada. And this is a very slow growth. And we've been looking at some of the programs that exist in the EU or in the USA, run by their governments, that are actually looking at making small investments in order to help subsidize certification costs, programs that ensure that certified farmers are qualifying for crop insurance. And these initiatives are in the United States alone, it increased the certified producers by 650% over the last couple of years, during the Obama administration. So I think that these are the types of information that we need to present to our government, that we're starting to lose our competitiveness amongst our trading partners, particularly if we have a lot of products coming in from other countries. We need to help support our own sector as other countries are. Who's our biggest producer? Saskatchewan. You should be proud. And I'm proud because I'm from here. And to be honest, when I was living here, I didn't realize that we were the largest producers, but I think Saskatchewan's a real hub of innovation. I look at all the great things that have come out of this province over the years. So just to highlight, Saskatchewan's 29% of Canadian acreage, 18.8% in Alberta. The BC numbers, it says around 21%. We're verifying that one, so I'm going to go on to a different chart. But the areas, Quebec is also about 9%, and then followed by Ontario, Manitoba, and then into the Atlantic provinces. So here's the real numbers, and I don't know if you can see any of these, but you can always request a copy of my presentation, so I'm putting it in there. The Prairies, of course, you're the leaders, and last year when we put together the data for the Prairie Organic Grain Initiative, the Prairies made up about 59% of Canadian acreage. Well, now you're up to 62%. So why I had to question the number on BC, it says that they're actually fell behind on production. When we collect this information from the certifiers, sometimes there are operators that are suspended or decertified, and we can see a decrease. So just to highlight, of course, that's awesome that our system's working if we've got people who are not compliant that no longer are certified, but also it becomes a challenge for us if somebody's suspended and then come back in. So we're just verifying our BC numbers. All the rest of them are looking pretty good, and as you can see, we've got fairly minimal growth across the country. And if it is a minus 4%, we're actually losing organic acreage. That's not something that we should be proud of. So don't take these numbers quite yet. It's just we couldn't verify all the details right before I headed to this conference. So circle back with me. We're going to be releasing our 2015 organic market data analysis report in the next couple months. And we'll have it all verified and in a nice booklet for you. But let's just talk about the Prairies again. You are the third largest producer of pulses globally. And out of all of the crops grown in Canada, 99% of protein crops come from here, 89% of organic wheat and oats, and and I've already qualified the oats, so I think I did a typo last night, sorry. And then just to highlight that we've got 290 Canadian farms that are transitioning to organic that we've found from the certification bodies, statistics. And I couldn't do the whole big breakout by province, but I'm gonna just highlight that last year when we did the statistics, Saskatchewan had 78 farmers transitioning, Alberta 42, and 10 in Manitoba. And some of these numbers are actually about transitioning by including a new type of operation. So it could be that they're adding on like a value-added processing facility. It could be like a company that's already organic in one way, but they're now starting to innovate. So what I'd like to do is actually put together provincial reports for every single province. And CODA has started realizing, well, for me, I'm new, so I can look at things with fresh eyes, that we need to do a lot more between federal and provincial. So we've started a task force which is going to be able to bring together the movement and really figure out where certain provinces have had success and where others haven't, and really do a lot more learning together and really tie it into our federal provincial asks when it comes to the Growing Forward 3 framework. So I thought it'd be fun to compare Saskatchewan to your neighbors within the Prairies. So I've grabbed the top 15 pieces of acreage. Fallow land is your number one for crop rotation. But oats, you are 20 times larger than Alberta. For wheat, you are 8 times larger than Alberta. Hard red spring wheat, you are 30 times more than Alberta. Flax, 15 times more. Hay, 8 times more. Clover, 10 times more. Barley, 13 times more. Where am I at? Kamut, we're at 15 times more than Manitoba. That's the one place where Alberta wasn't producing more. For lentils, 41 times more than Alberta. Alfalfa, 1.5 times more than Manitoba. Durum, 2.5 more than Manitoba. Peas, 17 times more than Alberta, and rye, 4 times more than Alberta. So you can see, you guys are the leaders. And I think it's inspiring. And I think that what I'd love to see, especially through the Prairie Organic Grain Initiative, which I help lead on the marketing committee, is to see more collaboration and inspiration, more exchange and learning. And I think that that is a part of the Prairie Organic Grain Initiative to inspire other farmers to see the opportunities. So let's talk about what is happening. We are growing a lot of things. Most of it's for export. But can we actually say for real what all those numbers are? No is the answer, because the government is not tracking things at the border as they leave. So sometimes when we get questions from other markets in regards to how much wheat is being exported to the United States, for example, we have to call up some of the larger companies, do an estimate, send it on to them. And so those codes that we need created are called harmonized sales codes, and we do have 60 harmonized sales codes tracking imports coming in, but 0 going out. So an initiative that CODA took was to actually lobby the government to create 14 new HS codes to track exports leaving, because we have no way to be able to measure what the opportunity is. We receive at CODA some agri-marketing funding. We lead trade missions internationally. We bring buyers in, but we have no idea about how to really track that in a very concrete way. So the other thing of why we would want to track more products coming in and going out, of course, we're all businesses. We need to know what the business opportunity is. I looked at the 60 harmonized codes that we have right now. 28 products that are coming across the border are products that can be grown locally. We could be doing a lot more sales in our own market with Canadian products. I tried to line it up that the first column is stuff that can last longer, of course, because we do have a Canadian winter system here, and then kind of filtered it on. But I look at, I used to be on the board of Ontario Natural Food Co-op. It's one of the large health food distributors in Ontario. And we were constantly talking about, well, we could do a lot more like frozen peas and frozen berries. And, for me as a consumer, I buy all my berries and my peas, etc., and I freeze them. So why can't we do that? Why can't we be the supplier to our own market on some of these things? And I think we're working from a very blind position because we don't have enough data. So I can tell you in the meetings that we've had with Minister McCauley's office and subsequent follow-up meetings, the area where they do agree that the organic sector needs support and that they're seeming to listen is around the data asks, because they also need to make sure that, that we continue to be competitive. So I put this slide up here because I think that, from the consumer side of things, we can be bringing in a lot of packaged products with a lot of, USDA logos on them. And I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. It just is happening. But then we also have the opportunity for the growth of more CSAs and farmers markets. And yes, we are Canadian, and I know what it's like to try to live through a harsh winter, but I think we're starting to see a lot more of a lot more people getting back into canning and freezing and really thinking about how to not pay so much and actually buy it locally and just freeze it and can it and really kind of get into that sort of a new type of sourcing. And I think when we've heard in a couple of the presentations over the course of the last 2 days around food waste, I think that, people thinking about how to actually preserve what they buy, what I'd really love to do is do a study on, for people who buy organic versus conventional, is there a difference between food waste because you are buying it with the idea of understanding where it comes from or perhaps even paying a higher price? So I think that would be a very interesting study for us to look at. How does organic consumers, do they waste more food than people who buy conventional? Who knows? And I just put this slide up here because I think that we are seeing that retailers are really driving, retailers and consumers obviously, are driving demand for organic. This is a picture of Costco. And, Costco is now the largest retailer. It's no longer Whole Foods that's carrying all the organic products out there. So we're seeing Loblaws, we're seeing Sobeys, they're all partnering with us for Organic Week because they see that consumers are wanting more and more organic products out there. But we are not producing enough here to be able to take advantage of that opportunity. So what do we need to do? How can we work together on some of these areas to really ramp up supply in Canada? The other area where is an interesting area is that we don't even know how many organic products we have in this country. So I could phone up Non-GMO Verified and ask them how many products they have approved to date, and they have 33,000. We collect all the statistics from all the certifiers, and we still don't have that information for our Canadian landscape. Whereas the US, when they took on the USDA NOP program, they created this organic integrity database, and you can go there, you can see every company that's certified, you can see what products are certified, they know the amount of products that are certified. They did a benchmark study when they took on the organic portfolio in the United States. And I think that it's really important for us to continue to push for that. I think that we as an industry will figure it out if the government doesn't do it, and I have started to have some conversations with GS1, which is the UPC people, and we have enough connections within the farmer market world to start looking at this. But just another area to highlight that I've heard in a couple of the meetings we've had in the last little while, you know, there's people who get certified and then all of a sudden they get decertified, but then the next day they're certified by another certifier. The Organic Integrity Database, I just saw an article come out yesterday on this, that they're doing a webinar on all U.S. stakeholders on how to use it, and they're firming up. This is a database owned by the U.S. government. They can see who was certified and then got decertified and then got recertified, and that's suspect for them, and that's going to give them more tools to be able to understand and monitor compliance. So I think that was a question that came up at our policy conference last week, and I'm pleased to see that, you know, data can be knowledge and it can be power and it can help continue with the integrity. So, value-added processors. So going beyond, we're starting to see that there's more and more value-added processors coming in to Canada, which is great. And I don't know necessarily whether this is, you know, farmers moving on and adding value to the products they already grow, but I think that I'm inspired to see that there's more and more certified organic manufacturers and value-added processors out there. I can tell you, when I was a small business, we were making hot chocolate and we had to pay every single, you know, certifier. We had to pay every single manufacturer's certification because nobody would take us on otherwise. And I think that now I'm seeing more and more manufacturers come into the fold saying, okay, we are certified organic, who else can I do business with, which is very interesting. So now we're going to turn the corner in regards to consumer demand, because we did a study with Ipsos. It was over 1,000 Canadians representing the Canadian demography to look at. We just did this in June, and I think that it's really important because we need to actually see how we're doing, and that's where I got the trust figures from, that's where I got the awareness figures from. But this is incredible to me, that we've got over half of our Canadians buying organic foods and drinks weekly. That is amazing, and that really makes a difference in regards to you know, people along the entire organic chain wanting to be involved when they see that there's so much demand for it. You're going to see on a future slide that there's 70% of people say that they do buy organic, but this is for people who actually buy it weekly, so that's pretty amazing. Shopping for in-home food. I think frequently when we've talked about who's the organic consumer, we talk a lot about women, and it is changing. It is starting to be that in the middle chart there, it says that men and women are sharing shopping. And as the primary shopper, we're seeing more and more men catching up to women as the primary shopper. So for organic companies, you need to think differently about how you're actually marketing, because it's not your primary consumer anymore, is simply women. And they're shopping in different places. So to really kind of pinpoint who is the organic buyer, what was very interesting is that income was not always a factor. People are buying because they believe in it, and they also promote it. And so that word of mouth and the trust comes from that. So you're seeing that there's millennials, and there's people who are in university, and young adults, and a lot of people with children that care about organic, and that they're really trying to make sure that they're buying products that align with their values. Residents of BC also, because we do have so much product grown in BC, particularly, you know, fruits and vegetables are available because of the climate, but we've always seen that there's been a strong buyer sentiment in British Columbia. We wanted to also compare to our neighbors, so we took one of their studies that they did on families and compared it to our families in our study. And we've got 70% of Canadians that will purchase organic and 80% in the United States. But our reasons for buying are very different than theirs. We have started to look at avoiding pesticides, avoiding herbicides, avoiding free from, whereas they're really looking at health, and they'll deem it to be something more akin to health. And I think this also is uniquely Canadian, the fact that 41% of people think about the environment when they buy their products. And that is not so much the case, but both countries both noted that they felt it was more nutritious. The other thing to note is that as Canadians, we also want more value for our money. So, when it comes to maybe cheap organic coming into Canada, maybe that is appealing to consumers. And I think that's something where the messaging of the Canadian local organic could really, really ramp up the demand. And of course, trying to make sure that our Canadian products are made because we don't have the same subsidies that the other countries do. And that's an area that we'll continue to work on. What are the most likely bought organic categories? Fruits and veg are for sure the largest areas at 77%, followed, trailed very, we only have 26 and 24% that are interested in dairy and meat, and then we get into breads and grains. And then also the snacks and packaged canned foods. It's newer that we've had these sort of prepared foods coming into the organic world, so I can imagine that they're harder to find. They're not available everywhere. When I was visiting my mom in Strasbourg, Saskatchewan, I went into the co-op because I had to see how much organic I could actually get there. It's not available everywhere, so I think you can get some basics like carrots and some, maybe even some bananas, but you can't get some of the other products like sugar, even coffee sometimes. Family spending patterns in the United States versus Canada. So at the top is the numbers with the US versus our Canadian organic. And just to highlight that, the first little bubble is grocery stores. The second bubble is like a mass market merchandiser like a Costco or a Walmart. The middle basket is a health food store. And then we go into online shopping and direct to farm. And the big distinctions here is that you can see a lot of people, yes, shop at grocery stores and mass merchandisers. And more people are shopping at health food stores than Canadians, but we love to go to the farm. And we're very strong on wanting to actually go direct. So going to the farm in this sentiment is actually farmers markets as well and CSAs. Also, I'm going to highlight that Americans have really taken to buying their organic food online. I don't know if you've been on the Amazon website anytime lately, but you can actually order a lot of products through Amazon and or even CSAs. You can purchase your basket online and have it delivered to your home. So that's not an area that we've caught up to in Canada quite yet. Generational spending patterns in Canada, the millennials. The millennials are changing everything, and in the past studies that we've done at CODA, we actually didn't test the 18 to 24-year-old range, which is really unfortunate because we can't do a lot of comparative data. But we knew that we were having to get on top of what is happening within the millennials. And as I mentioned already, by 2020, they are going to outpace baby boomers in regards to purchasing, and that is making a lot of industry kind of wake up and say, okay. So millennials, they like to buy at grocery stores. Baby boomers definitely love buying at grocery stores. Millennials are buying at twice the rate, though, is a very notable thing. They're buying double the amount of a baby boomer. And they also are, this generation that loves to go to the farm, and they definitely want to do a little bit more online shopping than, say, the baby boomers. So 9% for millennials, 2% for baby boomers, and kind of similar for the health food stores. So we hear frequently, well, if the price goes up, will people stop buying? People are saying no. Over the last 12 months that they would continue to buy as much or more. So over 80% said that they would actually maintain or purchase more organic if they can get it. So that's extremely hopeful for all of us to be able to look forward to people supporting the work that we all do. And just to highlight the growth in certified farmers. So we are growing, albeit small, where we've got 1.73% total growth. And we, again, are trying to verify and re-verify these numbers, but these ones seemed fairly certain, so I thought I'd be safe enough to present them. As primary producers, we're growth about 3%, and the livestock producers, that's one that I want to double check again, because it seems quite large. So just to highlight, data sounds boring, but it's pretty important. It's pretty important for us to be able to measure our business. I think I heard a couple discussions yesterday about sustainability and knowing how to price out your own operations to make sure that you are sustainable economically and that it's worth your while. So some of the things that we've been doing is really trying to do a lot of consultation. We were at the Growing Forward 2 consultations to talk about what wasn't working in the agricultural policy framework back in June. And then from that area, I was pretty disheartened because there was no mention of anything local. It was all about export markets, and there was no place that we kind of fit in. So 4 of us from the National Association stood up and voiced our opinions that innovation is definitely more than GE. You need to find a place for our innovative forms of farming, and we need more research because right now we're kind of just coated in with a lot of the conventional. And I'm actually pretty happy because in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, there's been the second round of consultations following the Calgary framework, or the Calgary statement, I guess it was. And suddenly, in the innovation area, there was a whole section on environment and climate change, and that was not there before. It was only 2 mentions of GE technology, so I feel like we were heard. And the other thing that happened was that before I was talking about major and minor commodities, that was it. Now it has a whole section about emerging and transformative sectors. So that's us. So I think that we are starting to have an impact. There's a lot of good feedback that we're getting from our colleagues at AFC, and they've said for them as staffers, they've never seen a light shining so bright for organics, but that means we have to stay focused and stay organized and really get our feedback rounded up into a white paper. So I'm encouraging you to go to, where's my clicker? These are the topics that were presented in regards to the next policy framework. But these are the areas where we need to collect your feedback on, is to really highlight what you need and what are some of the barriers that you find. We have a survey that is in this link here. We're going to leave it open for the next week because I wanted to make sure we got your feedback, and we're putting together a white paper, a position white paper, to really highlight what are the needs of the sector. So thank you very much for having me today, and just to highlight again that I think we all have a really unique role in the roles that we play in regards to advocating and growing and farming and selling. And I think that the great part about it is that people are recognizing that organic is at this next wave, I think, where we're really going to take off. So thank you for having me.
I'd like to thank Tia for speaking. If there's any questions, she's willing to answer. If anyone would like to ask her some questions?
Yeah. We can circulate this, right? I don't know. Can we? We could probably circulate this, I don't know, through the Organic Connections people, if you'd like.
I think we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are corporate farms playing a role in increasing numbers of acres in Saskatchewan or Alberta?
That's a very good question. I couldn't answer that because we haven't done the detailed analysis at a provincial level yet. But all we can do is look at company name and the acreage. That's all that's provided to us by the CBs, and actually what they're growing.
Is there any advocacy that can happen? I'm over here at the back.
Oh, where am I? Oh, there you are.
Yeah. I heard about organic farms getting their deliveries rejected because of residue. So is there any advocacy out there for that situation for the farmer who has followed the production practices and been audited and passed and certified, but still is rejected the premium for residue that probably came from his neighbor? Or I don't understand the rules around that.
Yeah, I'm not a certifier, so that one I can't answer probably at the depth that you'd like to hear. But what I can say is that when the GE Alpha was commercialized in Eastern Ontario, CODA came together with 15 other associations to form a coalition and really try to raise awareness and get time with Parliament Hill to talk about the risks to our sector with GE alfalfa being approved. So, but yeah, I think that's an interesting area for us to continue to look at. I can tell you that at CODA we have a GMO policy, and some of the work really shifts around trying to make sure that when these types of contamination happen to farmers, that it's not on organic farmers' backs, and that there's some recognition there. So, excuse me, one of the areas that we keep talking about working on with Canadian organic growers is crop insurance. And when you started everything off as as an organic production, but suddenly there's contamination, that you'd still be able to qualify for crop insurance and get the organic premium. So that will be
I think you
continued
can.
efforts.
There was another question in the front here, was there?
Yeah, did I understand you that the market is projected to be 600 billion?
I have it written down, and I don't know if I brought it up. I said it off the top of my head. I believe that it was 200 billion by 2020. It's 80 billion right now. Yeah, 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 yeah. iPhone should probably verify that number. That's probably where I got it from. Anybody else with questions? So yeah, stay in touch, because I think when our data is ready, we're going to have a lot more available. You could go ahead.
I was interested to see what you had up there about the data site that the U.S. government maintains, and I heard your admiration for that site. Are we going to agitate for a similar sort of data collection service from the government of Canada?
I've only been here since March, but I've probably brought it up about 10 times already with CFIA. And the question really is, and I think we need to think about this as an industry. If we ask them to do it and they hold the data, will we as a sector still have the data that we need to be able to do some of our analysis? Because we'll be giving away that, that power in some ways. So I think that's an interesting question, because I met with the USDA at Expo East trade show in Baltimore, and I asked them, why did you guys start a database? Trying to figure out the rationale of why they did it. They did it to be able to do their work of compliance and really kind of looking at who is certified or not, because they realized there was no place to do it. So I think our CFIA needs to do that for their own internal workflow, but I'm having a meeting with CFIA next week to continue this discussion about what do they do in order to make sure that there is compliance and that their auditors know whether somebody is certified or not and by who. But I think that we definitely need a public portal for all consumers and businesses and in one place. So maybe we could do something jointly where we can work together on that. That's, that's my hope.
It's just, I serve on the board of Sask Organics, and data is hard to come by.
Yeah.
And it's a real deficiency, just in terms of trying to organize and speak for and acquire the resources that the sector needs.
Yeah, totally agree. Anyone else?
Hi, I would like you to address in regards to whether you have any influence or discussion with regards to the interprovincial trade barriers, like the fruits and wines and meat and stuff like that. Have you ever been involved with that discussion?
So are you speaking about how some provinces have a provincial regulation versus the national, or?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, so.
Some products can't move freely from one province to another one, right? Like wine, different things. Beef is a big one.
So if you're gonna do any interprovincial trade, of course you have to be certified to the national standard, and then interprovincial trade is fine. As soon as you're only selling within your own province, it depends on if you have a provincial regulation. I hope I'm getting your question correct. Is that what you're asking?
Well, basically, I'm wondering whether you have any influence to break down those barriers, because we know they're all in place. But what my question is posing is the health standards. If it's food and safety, health safe in Saskatchewan, why isn't it as well in Alberta or Ontario or like? I'm involved in beef industry, we kill a lot of cattle, and we kill in Alberta. I'd like to bring that cattle back to Saskatchewan, but they're killed in provincial plant. So you're right. Now I fall under the federal CFIA standard, but I'm saying if some of them barriers came down, trade would be much easier between provinces, and not just beef.
I see.
And I'm wondering if your group has any influence there.
Yes, I mean, as a national association, we deal with mostly the national standard. When it comes to the provincial, we work with the provincial associations like Sask Organics, et cetera. So they do the lobbying at a provincial level, and I think if more and more of these issues, I definitely see a patchwork approach happening, particularly when you bring up the Quebec-Ontario border, because, you know, they would have to be certified organic for everything and anything within Quebec, or if they sell externally, whereas in Ontario, we don't have a provincial standard, so you could sell something as organic only within Ontario, but you don't have to actually get certified. Well, it's not overseen by the provincial government. So I think there's a lot of issues in regards to the provincial situation versus our federal, and I hope that we do bring these things up, and particularly we don't even have a standard for things outside of food. So we've got a lot of issues that we still need to work on. Yes?
On your graph, the amount of acres in each jurisdiction, is that cultivated acres or total organic acres?
Total organic acres, I believe. What about the certifiers? The certifiers who are in the room, tell me what you gave us. Is it cultivated or is it certified acres? Yeah.
That's an important point because places like Alberta probably have a lot of pasture acres that are, that can never be growing crops as compared to others. They kind of use the result. Because you put the amount of acres in each jurisdiction, then you list the crops.
Right.
Nothing about livestock.
No, I only grabbed the top 15. There's a lot more down below. There's like a lot more. I just tried to do it for that purpose. But in our full study, you'll definitely have everything to do with livestock, dairy, etc. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, great. Thank you.